Welcome back to a Book a Day podcast. As you know, this week I am narrating some of the finest folk stories from India. In the previous podcast, I brought a folk story from Andhra Pradesh region. Today, I've got a folk story from Maharashtra, and the folk story is called The Five Craftsmen. It has been narrated in various other traditions and regions of in India in different forms. It's a popular story, and I'm going to narrate the version that comes from Maharashtra. So, without any delay, let me now narrate this folk story called The Five Craftsmen. Here we go. Once upon a time, in a little town called Marathwada in Maharashtra, lived five friends. Most of the people in this small but prosperous town were involved in farming. Even children cared for the water buffaloes, and it was a common sight to see them herding and taking the beasts to the rice fields for their daily work. However, the five friends, a carpenter, a weaver, a bangle seller, a goldsmith, and a Brahmin priest, found it difficult to survive, as none of them generated any substantial income. Therefore, they decided to leave the town and go further afield to seek their fortune. Therefore, one early morning, they took their tools, merchandise, and as many belongings as they could comfortably carry, and, taking leave of their families, left home. After traveling a long way, when darkness fell, they came to a forest. It was dark, very dark, and they found it difficult to proceed any further. So they decided to spend the night there, and wandering about came across a large banyan tree with spreading branches festooned with aerial roots. Nearby flowed a rivulet with babbling waters. Here they collected some long grass, spread it under the tree to make a comfortable bed, and lay down. They were so tired after walking all day, the cool, gentle breeze was a welcoming comfort. Just before they were about to sleep, one of them said, "We do not know what sort of wild animals there are in the forest. Furthermore, what if there are tigers or other wild beasts? What if they were to come here? We have nothing to defend ourselves." Now, at this, the Brahmin, being a person of great wisdom, said, "Let us take turns to keep vigil throughout the night until dawn. This way, all of us can have our rest before we set out tomorrow." Then he suggested the order of the vigil. To this, all the others agreed. Accordingly, the carpenter was the first, followed by the weaver, the goldsmith, the bangle seller, and lastly, the Brahmin priest. The carpenter started his vigil while all the others slept. It was the night of the full moon, and the gentle breeze and the noise of the softly flowing rivulet were very soporific. In order not to fall asleep, he decided to keep himself occupied, and, finding a piece of log, began to carve the statue of a beautiful woman, while sitting on top of a flat root nearby. His intricate and skillful carving produced a sculpture of extreme beauty. He was overjoyed by his own creation, and placing it leaning on the trunk of the banyan tree, went to sleep. Now it was the turn of the weaver. When he got up, what did he see? He saw the exquisitely beautiful figure of a maiden. He rubbed his eyes and, opening them, exclaimed, "What a lovely piece of artistry! But alas, she is naked, and this is not proper. Let me clothe her. Saying this, he took out some silk thread from his bag and, employing his skill with the utmost care, wove a beautiful sari and jacket, with which he clothed the statue. He then placed it in its original position before waking the goldsmith for his turn, and he went to sleep. The goldsmith, too, like his friends, was overcome with amazement. The only things he found missing were ornaments. So he took out his tools and some gold coins, fashioned some ornaments, a necklace, earrings, a headband, toe rings, and anklets. Adorning the sculpted figure with these, he woke up the bangle seller to keep watch. Seeing the statue standing there, the bangle seller was overwhelmed by its beauty and form, but alas, something was lacking. Oh, yes, she has no bangles, no Mangal Sutra, which is a chain of marriage, nor the kumkum, the red ointment, the mark for her forehead. Saying this, he provided all the bangles required, but did not have the red kumkum. A thought came to him. He pierced his finger with his sharp knife and placed the auspicious red mark on the maiden's forehead with his blood, and leant under the tree. Having done this, he woke up the Brahmin and retired to sleep. The Brahmin, on the last watch, got up and went to the rivulet, bathed, and did all his ablutions, and chanting his morning incantations, came and took up his post on rock. Looking around, he saw the statue, and was ecstatic and overjoyed, and exclaimed, "Oh, what a beauty! What a wonderful woman! But alas, she is lifeless. Let me give her life." Saying this, he took the statue and, placing it on the rock, started chanting his mantras, all the time sprinkling holy water. This he did until dawn. As he finished uttering the last mantra, the statue came to life, and a damsel of indescribable beauty stood in front of him. Now all the others woke up, and seeing the maiden, were infatuated. They all wanted her to be their wife, and started quarreling, while the maiden watched them with a smile on her face. The carpenter argued that because he created the statue, he should have her. The weaver claimed that he should have her because he had clothed her, and he had protected her modesty. The goldsmith mocked them both, and said that to have had a maiden without ornaments would have been unthinkable, because she would not have been able to marry anyone in that condition. Therefore, she should be his wife. The bangle seller claimed her because he was responsible for giving her the unconventional but important mark of marriage by placing the kumkum on her forehead with his own blood, and for tying the Mangal Sutra and putting bangles on her wrists. With all this, none of them was prepared to back down, and they even started to exchange blows. At this moment, in order to avoid further serious incidents, the carpenter suggested that they approach God Brahma and let him settle the matter. Now, suddenly, a furious storm began, and the entire forest was shaking, the trees swaying to and fro, and the birds were flying hither and thither amidst claps of thunder and flashes of lightning. Once all this had subsided, they saw a farmer coming towards them. The Brahmin priest, seeing him, recognized him to be no mean person but Mahabrahma himself emanating a divine aura. They all, realizing this, bowed down to him and paid due reverence. Then the farmer sat on the rock and, beckoning the maiden to sit by his side, asked the reason for their quarrel. One by one, they related their story. The farmer asked the carpenter what he did. The carpenter said that he had created the statue with his own hands. The farmer asked, "What is the relationship of the creator to the created maiden?" "The father, sir," said the carpenter. Then the farmer asked the weaver, "Well, you provided her with clothing, thus protecting her modesty. How is the person who protects the virtue of a woman related to her?" "As a brother," said the weaver. Then the goldsmith was asked, "You provided all the ornaments. Who provides his niece with ornaments for her marriage?" "The maternal uncle, sir," said the goldsmith. Turning to the bangle seller, the farmer asked, "You provided her a virgin with the mark of a kumkum and the thread of marriage, thus giving her the status of a married woman." The Brahmin priest, hearing this, realized what the verdict would be. Thereupon he protested and said that he had brought an inanimate statue to life, and therefore she should be his. The farmer said, "Well, what did you do in giving her life?" "I used my knowledge of the mantras to give her life and knowledge." Then the farmer asked, "What is the relationship of a giver of knowledge to the recipient?" The Brahmin answered, "He is the Guru." The farmer said, "Well, then you have all agreed about the role of the father, the brother, the maternal uncle, and the Guru, but the one who gave the virgin the symbols of marriage and respectability is the rightful husband." All of them were very impressed by what the farmer had said and bowed down and touched his feet. When they lifted their heads, the farmer had disappeared. And so the story ends. I hope you enjoyed this story. As I said, it's quite popular in other regions of India as well. And there are slight variations in this story that you will find. But still, the main structure of the story, the crux of it, remains pretty much the same. So with that, I will take your leave. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you the next time with another story. Thank you very much.